We get a couple more major updates in this David case, and it's looking spooky. As you guys know, there's a private investigator which is working on this case, and he has been sharing a lot of information with us. He also shared with us on how there was chemicals found inside David's house when they went inside that could help get rid of a body. Why else would those chemicals be there? There is no evidence that any crime was done in that house. I would like to share that as well. But what they're thinking is that they had the stuff there to get rid of a body.
You mean that there might be evidence that a crime was committed at that house?
Not so much a crime, no. And I'll just be honest with you. We don't have any evidence that anything happened to us at that house. But there's definitely evidence that we've collected that helps the timeline. We now have a much better understanding of when that Tesla arrived at that final parking spot. I'll tell you, I do have surveillance from different houses in the neighborhood showing the Tesla being moved. So things like that, and I'm not even saying that LAPD didn't have that. I'm sure they did, but we wanted to make sure. And we did some work on the up-resing the footage to find out who was driving the vehicle. And there are some other items that were found at the house that weren't taken during the search warrant. Put her in this Tesla, and then maybe he thought he could get somebody to get rid of that car, and they were just like, no, I'm not doing it, and just got left there. But I will say this, there are some things that, and I'm talking physical evidence that was at that house that is, there could have been greater plans as far as getting rid of her, and it's scary, sadistic stuff. And that's why we're trying to learn more about that. I wish I could say more, but for obvious reasons I can't. But it doesn't have to do with how she died, but maybe how they were planning on ultimately getting rid of her, and how maybe that Tesla was just a holding spot at the time, and things just, their timing was just off as far as getting this done. But there's a few things that.
Is that what those chemicals were used for? We don't know. This is all alleged. This is just all our personal opinion in this video. But it is something to look at. Why would David have some of these different things that we saw? Not only that, he had that random trip that he left over in April to, I believe it was Santa Barbara, in a remote area for a couple hours. What was he doing?
The girl found dead in singer David's car. The LAPD saying they have evidence that David traveled to the Santa Barbara area sometime during spring of this year. The reason for the trip is still under investigation, including if at all it is relevant to the case. Police also saying today that reports of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body being frozen and decapitated are not true. In September, the teen's body was discovered at a tow yard in Tessa belonging to the singer. And we have previously reported sources telling Eyewitness News that David is considered a suspect.
We see different stories on Reddit that some of his friends, with like that girl that her name starts with an A, that she might have left out the country and we saw her in the Netherlands. Some people are saying that might be old family trips. We don't know. There is a lot of questions still coming up with this. What happened to Neo? Remember his Asian friend Neo that we saw that people might have said they might have been Ayo together? Was he the one that moved the vehicle? Because we did hear that someone moved that vehicle multiple times around the neighborhood. Who was moving the vehicle? It couldn't be David. Was it a plan between him and Neo and his other friends? Did Shorty OD in that house and they just didn't know how to call the cops because there was an underage female in the house? What happened? We're still every single day waiting for this case to be broken. Not only waiting for this case to be broken, waiting for someone to be arrested. And the information that did come out from this was we also see an executive from David's label, not only an executive, someone that was helping David with management, on the stand during a hearing where they're asking him multiple questions. And one of the questions that struck everyone was, why did you not call the police? Which we hear him in the hallway allegedly being overheard saying he just wanted the tour to continue, so that's why he never called the police. But why would they be asking him, why didn't you call the police? Did they know that David was on tour with an underage girl? Because we see multiple pictures of her backstage while Dave is on stage. Or did they ask him why he didn't call the police because he might have heard his friends talking about a dead body or the underage girl's missing?
David is in the crosshairs as a suspect. Something happened outside the grand jury room in the hallway that seems to rope in
really focus on
music executives who may or may not know something connected to all of this.
In fact, the person who spent most of the day on Monday testifying before the grand jury is a guy who is the head of David's record label and the tour company that operates his most recent tour. His name is Robert Morgenroth Jr. And he, like I said, spent most of the day on Monday. But when he walked out of the grand jury, and this is what you're referring to, there was a conversation he had with his lawyer in a hallway.
Now let's explain this. This is a kind of wide hall.
What did David do, or what did David's friends do that would have made him call the police, or at least they thought he should have? But he didn't because he wanted the tour to continue. Was he reading these things online? Because remember, David didn't end the tour right away. As soon as the body was found in his trunk, it's not like he ended the tour right away. David stayed on tour for a bit longer. I wouldn't say like one week more, or maybe a couple shows more, before the tour actually got canceled.
Hallway outside of the criminal courts building, and the hallway echoes, and there were about a half dozen people around, and he was talking loud enough that people heard it.
Right.
And what was said is really, really interesting.
Because he said that, said to his attorney, they were grilling me.
This is the prosecutor. Her name is Beth Silverman. She is a very seasoned prosecutor, very aggressive prosecutor.
And what he said to his lawyer in this hallway, again, loud enough for other people to hear, he said, she was grilling me about why I didn't call cops.
Why I didn't call cops. That is really, really interesting. Now, his response is also interesting.
Right. He said, I feel like I didn't have the responsibility to do that and just wanted to continue with the tour.
Let's kind of unpack this. Number one, we can't say what he was supposed to call cops about, according to the DA. This could have to do with anything except for one thing. It seems that the DA believed that there was some criminal conduct for which cops should be called.
Right.
That seems
Why else
obvious.
would the DA be asking that?
And what the case is about is the LAPD and apparently the DA believe that David may have been the culprit here in the death of Celeste
We know
Rivas.
that they are operating as calling him a suspect in her death.
That's right. And his answer to me sounds like someone who was either told some information or knew some information, formed a judgment that he wanted to continue with the tour rather than call police. It doesn't sound as if he was maybe sort of not in the know. It sounds as if he knew something
Well, that's
either
what the-
told
that's
him,
what the
and
DA
that's why the DA was pushing on this
The other
issue.
thing we don't know here is exactly what tour he's referring to. But we do know that when the body was found in David's car, he was on tour, in the middle of a tour that even after the news of the body being found in his car, continued that tour for another week or so.
Now, to be fair, this gentleman was with David since 2022, and there have been 3 tours. So it could be a prior tour, except the prior tour doesn't really make sense because Celeste wasn't an issue until this tour.
What criminal activity
and
was
what
going
criminal
on?
activity
So
was
what
going
criminal
on.
activity was going on?
But-
You connect the dots there.
And this dovetails with our understanding that he is considered a suspect. David is considered a suspect, and this now dovetails with the prosecutor grilling.
You're in front of a grand jury and you're asking
trying to get charges.
his tour manager about, obviously.
And it's a
they
big
feel that
no-no
there's some
to be
information.
overheard. I'm not sure it was intentional or ever. That hallway does echo. We've been in it many, many times.
It is taken very seriously when the grand jury proceedings are publicly available in this way.
And it just is interesting. It's like, why didn't you tell police? It means he said something or acknowledged something that triggered the DA to say that if you knew what you just said, why didn't you call the police? And he's saying, not my responsibility. My job is to make sure the tour goes on. That's really it.
And now we don't even know where David is. Also, a burn cage was found inside David's house, which that is crazy. Because a burn cage could be used to get rid of a body. How, you may ask? The body was cut up, allegedly. Remember, this is all alleged, but the body was dismembered. Was it dismembered because they were gonna try to put it from piece to piece inside that burn cage? Also, all that different chemicals was there to clean up the area after. A burn cage incinerator that is advertised to burn at 1600 degrees was discovered at the Hollywood Hill mansion the singer David was renting at the time. The body of the teenage girl was found in the trunk of the Tesla, according to the private detective hired by the property owner. The incinerator, which was still boxed and unused, was discovered inside the Doheny Street residence by Steve Physiker, who was hired to comb through the $20,000 a month pad by its owner. The private detective revealed the disturbing discovery in a post on Twitter Tuesday, describing it as something you would expect to find on a farm rather than a home in the Hollywood Hills. Why the hell would a burn cage be there? Also, pictures of the discovery was shared, which I'll show you guys here. Dr. Burn Cage. And he uploaded his tweet here where he basically shares, although my words have been misquoted by some, what I actually said about the certain items found at the Doheny address was that they were items you would expect to find on a farm rather than a home in the Hollywood Hills. One of those items was a burn cage, incinerator. Advertised to burn at 1600 degrees, human cremation are typically performed at approximately 1400 degrees. That's crazy. An incinerator is not legal to use within city limits and serves no legitimate purpose at a resident property in the Hollywood Hills. Some will argue that the item was intended as a prop for a video. If that were the case, it raises several obvious questions. Why would a 55-pound burn cage be delivered to a private resident instead of directly to a prop designer or a production house? Why would it be ordered before departing on an extended world tour? And why was it never used in any video production? It is also important to note that there were additional items present that could be used in conjunction to the burn cage. To be very clear, the burn cage was not used. It was still new in the box. However, given that Celeste Hernandez's remains were unfortunately found in a Tesla trunk, the presence of an incinerator at the same residence associated with the vehicle raises questions about intent. The burn cage was not taken during the search warrant, and because it was not used, it appears it's not of importance to any possible criminal investigation. But we think it's important context. Even if not criminal, the burn cage and other related items were delivered to the resident under a false name, although the deliveries were accepted at the property. Attached is a photo of the actual burn cage incinerator as found at the residence, along with an image from Dr. Burns' advertised materials from the product. Like, it's just weird. Why the hell would he have a burn cage that can go to 1600 degrees? Again, like he said, cremation usually happens at 1400 degrees. Was that what they were gonna use to get rid of this body? It would only make sense. Again, this is just our opinion. But what else would he be using it for? For logs? You're not gonna use a burn cage to cook logs in your back, or for a campfire to make s'mores. That's not what that'd be used. You'll use a fireplace. Why else in the world would he be using that in a home? And it's not even legal. Not only that, we see that the authorities allegedly might make an arrest. And they might make an arrest because someone's refusing to cooperate. When someone's refusing to cooperate, they can plead the fifth, but only if it incriminates themselves. So if they're not able to plead the fifth, maybe they have information about the situation that could get David in trouble, and they don't want to share it. So we are seeing online that prosecutor and the 12 are allegedly getting ready to arrest someone.
Case involving the death of Celeste Rivas, and it is not David. We know a lot. Let me download you on what we found out. So this week, there has been a witness before the grand jury, and he is intimately involved in David's life, the singer David, who the LAPD and the LA County DA says is a suspect in what they believe is the murder of Celeste Rivas. His name is Robert Morgenroth. Robert Morgenroth is the head of Mogul Vision, which is the label for David. But more than just the executive, the general manager, he is a manager. He manages David, and he is involved in David's day-to-day life and clearly knows a lot. So on Monday, Morgenroth was in the hallway with his lawyer, and there were people around, and they weren't sitting or standing right next to them, but the hallway echoes, and it was clear to people around there that there was a conversation that Morgenroth was having with his lawyer, and he was recounting what happened inside the grand jury room with the prosecutor in the case. The prosecutor, Beth Silverman, according to Morgenroth, here's what he said. She was very pushy on why I didn't call police. And then he went on to say that he said, in response to that he said, quote, I feel like I didn't have the responsibility to do that and just wanted to continue with the tour. Now, we do not know the context of this, but when the DA is grilling him about not calling the police, that has to involve a crime. You're not going to call the police because somebody didn't show up for work. You're going to call the police if there's some kind of crime involved, especially since this is a case involving what the DA says is a crime. So we don't know what Morgenroth knew that would require him, according to the DA, to pick up a telephone and call the police. But there's something. And again, he was involved in David's day-to-day life. So, okay, there is more. there is another manager in this big turn. There is now a grand jury that has convened to try and dig up information that could lead to an arrest.
Yeah, the LA County District Attorney's Office presenting evidence to this grand jury, presenting the evidence they have at this point. And the grand jury, what we've heard is that the grand jury has been convened for several days in mid-November. What we don't know, because grand juries are all done with good reason in secrecy, so we don't know if they are done at this point.
They may still, my guess is they're still going.
I'm guessing they're still
let me kind of explain the way this works. This is an investigative grand jury. And the reason that they convene these is because the police can call somebody that they want to interview, and a lot of people clam up. They say, I'm not going to talk to you. They're afraid of incriminating themselves or other people. And it's very difficult sometimes for police to talk to people who are involved to get information. So the reason for a grand jury is that they can subpoena people and require them to testify. The only way somebody cannot testify is to use their Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. But if there's no Fifth Amendment, they have to testify. So the police use the grand jury as an investigative tool to get things that they could not easily.
I'm dying to see who it is. Could it be David's mother? Could it be the Celeste, the decoy that we all think, the older one, the one that was of age? Could it be her? Could it be his friend that we think went to the Netherlands and might have came back to California? Could it be Neil that we haven't heard from in weeks? Actually, it can't be Neil because they did share that it is a female, I believe correctly. Also, would the music executive be called back for any more questions? And if David thinks that his old manager and music executive, Robert, I forgot his last name, is gonna go down for him, not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. We've seen many different labels bend and fold when their artists need them most. Shout out to YNW Melly. And don't forget, it was super creepy that David's tour had a casket in it. It was like a whole funeral. Like he gave Celeste, again, we don't know if he had anything to do with the murder, but it's just weird. Celeste goes missing, you're on tour, and there's a whole like funeral room, like a wake with a casket. People can write letters and drop it in. Like it's just very odd. I've been to hundreds and hundreds of concerts. You guys know how many tours we've done in here, how many vlogs we've done in here. I've never seen something that creepy. That is extremely weird. And then for the lo-fi R&B music that he's singing, it just doesn't go hand in hand. Is there more to that as well? Should that be investigated? Sub up to the channel, guys. Do not forget we're on that road to 20,000 subscribers. The more information we continue to receive, the faster we will continue to update you guys. But this right here, I don't think is gonna get solved in 2025. I think this story is gonna continue to 2026. Maybe it'll be 26 before we even see our first arrest. Let me know your thoughts down below. Any prayers you would love to leave for Celeste, always feel free. Sub up, sub up.